Hey guys, it's Rick. Welcome to the HDVIBE channel. If you'd like to see more tips, tricks, rides, reviews, installs on my Harley Davidson touring motorcycles, as well as information about motorcycles and the motorcycle community at large, please hit that subscribe button. And when you do subscribe, please leave a comment down below saying I subscribe so I can personally reach out and thank you for supporting the channel. Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon and select all so you do get notified every time I do put out new content. If you're familiar with the channel, you probably know this. But if you're new to the channel, you probably don't. I actually own a Road Glide Special and a Street Glide Special. And what I'm going to do today is answer the age-old, hotly debated question of which is better, the Road Glide or the Street Glide? And we'll get into it right after this. So guys, if you've been to the channel before, you know I own both a Road Glide Special and a Street Glide Special. And what I want to do today, and I want you to stick around to the very end of this video, and I am going to definitively answer the question of which one of these bikes, the Road Glide or the Street Glide, is better. So hang on to the end. But what I did was I did a lot of research on this. I did research in terms of on Harley Davidson's website. I did unscientific polls on YouTube. I obviously own both of these. I've talked to people that own a Road Glide or own a Street Glide and gotten their input. But let's first start with the specifics from the Harley Davidson website and the detailed specs of these bikes. So most of the detailed specs on these bikes are identical. There's only a few areas where there's differences. The first area where there's differences is actually the length. The Road Glide Special, the overall length is 95.7 inches. And the Street Glide Special is 95.5 inches. So I'm not sure where that 0.2 inches comes from because the rake, the wheels, the chassis, the suspensions are all the same. So I'm not sure where that 0.2 comes from. But according to Harley Davidson's website, the Road Glide Special is just a little bit longer. Ground clearance. Ground clearance on the Road Glide Special is 5.1 inches. On the Street Glide Special is 4.9 inches. Again, same suspension, same chassis. So I'm not sure where it comes from, but the Road Glide Special has a little bit more ground clearance. I'm not sure 0.2 of an inch if you would actually notice that or not, but it does. So those are a couple areas. Another area, this is a little bit more interesting. So the Road Glide Special actually weighs about 26 pounds more than the Street Glide Special. Again, this is according to Harley Davidson's website and the detailed specs on these bikes. And that's in sort of running order with all your fluids and liquids and obviously without a rider on it. The other area that's different is what they call luggage capacity. So that's your saddlebags and then any pockets or storage areas up on the fairings. And so you know on a Street Glide you just have the one little pocket on the right side. On the Road Glide you have two bigger storage areas up in the fairing, and so I think that's where the difference comes from. So the Road Glide Special actually has 2.7 cubic feet of storage versus the Street Glide Special has 2.5 cubic feet of storage. So a lot of the specs from Harley Davidson's website, there's a lot that are identical, but obviously the big elephant in the room, always in the hotly debated topic, is the fairings, right? You have the fixed fairing on the Road Glide Special and you have the batwing fairing on the Street Glide Special. So let's get a little bit of history on these fairings. So the batwing fairing actually came into play in Harley Davidson's lineup in 1969, and I think it was on the Electra Glide. And the batwing was actually a dealer add-on that they bolted onto the bike. And that's, if you go and you see the Electra Glide Revival, that is supposed to emanate the 1969 version of the Electra Glide with that white fairing compared to and white saddlebags. Those were a dealer add-on option. And the reason they were white was because they weren't painted like the color of the bike, because they were dealer add-on. So that is why they are white. Batwing fairing has gone through iterations, and the most recent upgrade or change to the batwing fairing was in 2014 when they went to Harley Davidson went to the Rushmore models. I think the only main difference is it has that little vent to get a little bit more airflow through the top of the fairing. So now let's talk about the fixed fairing on the Road Glide. So when did the Road Glide come to to be? If anybody knows, drop a comment down below, but I'm gonna tell you now. It was 1998. That was when the first Road Glides came out. And again, they were basically on the same platform as what then was the Touring line. Now we know it as the Grand Touring line. So this fairing, I believe, has only gone through 2 iterations. So the initial fixed fairing shark nose did not have the vent. And you may have heard, so the I think 2014, before they sort of changed the fairing on the Road Glides, you would get kind of a death wobble at a certain speed, and it was a pretty high speed. And I don't know if it was because of some stability issue or whatever the case may be, or because the venting wasn't there. It was pretty much just a flat shark nose fairing without that vent, that now, as we know, on the Road Glides, the shark nose now have the fairings. And I believe, again, that fairing was updated during the sort of this Rushmore changeover, and it sort of stood the test of time, and it is what it is now. So the other thing that's a little bit different, obviously, is the handlebars, right? So with the fixed fairing, those handlebars on the Road Glide, they seem as though they're maybe just a little bit, kind of, they go up a little bit higher and then they kind of come down. At least for me, the ergonomics are pretty good. The Street Glide, they're not quite as long again, but again, for an average size guy, the ergonomics on these stock bars for me are fine. I know a lot of people change the bars. I don't really have any need or necessity to do that. So a couple things on to talk about the fairings, right? So obviously on the shark nose, you have the 2 headlight configuration that is static, right? And you have the single headlight configuration on the Street Glide or the Batwing fairing, which is on some of the other bikes as well. But obviously when you turn the handlebars, because that is a handlebar mounted fairing, that light will go with you whichever way you're turning. So if you turn to the left, that light will aim left, and vice versa. But obviously on the Road Glide, that headlight does not move because you're on a fixed fairing. So a lot of people will say, you know, you're not going to get as much light in the turns on the Road Glide as you would on the Street Glide. Well, to some extent I agree, but mostly I disagree with that. And let me tell you why. So if you think about it, when you're going down the highway and you're going on curves or you're turning, right, you're sort of leaning the bike. And whether you're riding the fixed fairing or the Batwing fairing, that fairing is really not turning. If you're on the Batwing, you're kind of leaning that bike, right? You're leaning into that curve, and the bike is just kind of gliding through the curve. So in essence, your headlight is still heading straight. Eventually it will come around the curve as you go. And I think that's one of the primary reasons why you get the adaptive headlights that you can put on these Batwing fairings, is so it actually does turn that beam in the direction that you're turning. So obviously on the fixed fairing, it's kind of the same, right? You're turning, but you're really not turning your handlebars, so it's not really I don't think it's a disadvantage or advantage to one or the other, especially in curves. Now, I will say, if you're doing a slow speed turn, you're at a stop light and you're gonna make a 90-degree right. Making a 90-degree right, it's usually gonna be what? At an intersection, right? Which is generally well lit. Or if you're out in the country, it's gonna be at a 4-way stop. Make that hard right or hard left, and those lights are gonna be following you pretty quickly anyway. So, and the other thing I think about too, when people say that about the headlights, because I've gotten that comment since I've gotten this bike, is how do car headlights work? Car headlights are fixed, and you turn the wheels, right? When you make a turn, your lights kind of come around eventually as the car turns. And I think about it the same on these fixed fairings, the shark nose. It's the same concept. So obviously DOT government regulations wouldn't let them put a bike out that wasn't providing enough light. So I think that sort of argument in my mind is kind of debunked. And is really probably not super valid at the end of the day. So guys, I just want to take a minute here in the middle of this video and thank you for watching this video, and I hope you'll watch to the end. Leave some comments, give it a thumbs up, and more importantly, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you watched my videos and you like them and you continue to come back, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really makes a difference. It helps get these videos out to other people that are like-minded, that want to see this type of content. So we'll get back to the video now. The other thing people will say is, kind of a con against the Batwing versus a plus for the shark nose is you have all of the weight of the fairing on your handlebars, because the Batwing is mounted on the handlebars versus the shark nose being mounted to the frame. So I will say, again, when I first got this bike and had been riding it a little bit, and then got this bike and sort of was maneuvering it around here in the garage, I did notice there was a little bit of a weight differential. I could feel more weight on those handlebars. But once you're going a few miles an hour, for me anyway, you don't feel that extra weight on the handlebars. The other aspect is highway, right? Everybody says the plus goes to the Road Glide because the fairing's mounted to the frame and you're not going to get the turbulence from the trucks when you pass, and the cars and the crosswinds and all these sort of things, and it's not going to impact your handlebars like the Batwing because you don't have that fairing on there and it's independent. Well, I will tell you my personal experience, and I've ridden this one a lot of miles, and I've ridden this one a couple thousand miles since I've gotten it. I don't really see a difference. I've passed trucks, I've been behind trucks, I've been in high wind, crosswind. I don't really feel a difference. Now I will say, to me, because of the way the fairing's configured on the Batwing versus the shark nose, I mean, you have a lot more space between you and obviously the fairing. So for me, I feel like I get a little bit more wind coming up underneath this fairing versus the Street Glide, the Batwing fairing. And again, I'm not gonna say it's bad or good. It's just, to me, I do kind of notice a little bit more coming up, and it's kind of coming around my body, not necessarily at my helmet. The other aspect is people say the shark nose fairing is ugly, and people say the Batwing is more aesthetically pleasing. It's the classic Harley Davidson fairing, and to some extent I think I might agree with that actually. You know, the Batwing fairing for me, I mean, I got this was my first Harley Davidson, the Street Glide Special with the Batwing, and I will say I looked at the Road Glide and I'm like, I don't know if I'd ever buy a Road Glide. But obviously I did. I'm fortunate I'm able to have both of these plus the Road King Special that has no fairing and just the windshield, and we'll talk about that maybe another day. But yeah, I mean, it's different. It's newer. Like I said, this one came out in 1998. This has been around since 1969, so people have seen this much longer than they've seen this one. Guys, we've gone through a lot of information. We've gone through the specific dimensions and information from Harley Davidson. I've given you my real world on bike experiences with this bike, the Road Glide Special and the Street Glide Special, and we've come to the point in the video where I am going to give you the definitive answer on which one of these bikes is better. The better bike is the one that you like. That's right. These bikes are both excellent. They're a little bit different. There's a few specific dimensions and weights that are slightly different. This one's slightly heavier than this one, but at the end of the day, it comes down to which one do you like. The prices are identical. So that's it, guys. That's the answer. It's simple. It's all a matter of opinion. I want to leave you with this. Life is short. Get out and ride the bike. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.